All right, it is time for Friday Reads. Hey everyone, it is Shannon, and I'm super excited to be here today and to share with you my Friday Reads video. In my Friday Reads videos, I share the books that I finished, the books I started, and anything interesting about books that I'm carrying over week to week. And this week I do have a little bit of everything, or maybe I should say for the past 2 weeks I have a little bit of everything because I didn't end up having a Friday Reads last week. Sorry about that, I just wasn't up to filming on the day in which I had to film, and I have learned that it is better just to let that go and then just get back to it on the next time. So this is the next time. So we have a bunch of books to get through. So I'm going to get this party started. First up, I finished The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. And the subtitle for this is Accomplishing More by Managing Your Time, Attention, and Energy. So this is a nonfiction book about productivity, which actually is one of my goals for the year, is to read nonfiction books about productivity. And I don't know if I managed any last year, maybe just one. So starting the year off well with already reading one. And this was an interesting take on productivity. The whole idea of managing your time, energy, and attention. Is that it? Your time, energy, and attention. Like thinking about that, like when do you have attention? Like what is your attention like at different points during the day? How is that affected by what you eat or how much you sleep or, you know, your environment? And same thing with your energy and then also your time. That was really, really interesting and very valuable because there are certain things that I find myself that it's better to do when I have really good energy, and then there's other things that I can do when my energy's not so great, but I can still have pretty good attention. So it's not that they're all completely interconnected. You don't need to be running at a 10. For me, I found I didn't need to be running at a 10 out of 10 on all three to be productive. I'm never running out of 10 actually these days, but anyway, that's a whole other story. But yeah, so that was really, really interesting. There are some things that are very familiar to me because I've been interested in productivity for many years now, since I read Getting Things Done by David Allen all those years ago. It must be like 10 years ago, and that's actually a work that is referenced a fair amount in this book, so that was cool. Although it was a little it did weird me out a little bit when the author said that he read that and applied those principles when he was in high school. Yeah, it's okay. We all age. It's okay. But that was weird. Yeah, so I enjoyed this. I listened to this in part in audiobook, but then I also got it out from my library on ebook because it has exercises, and I find with exercises I prefer to do those at my own pace. And often when I'm listening to an audiobook, I'm sort of out and about, although not very much these days, but still, if I was out getting groceries or something, and it's in the middle, you're waiting for the light to turn green, it's all right, now take 5 minutes too. It's it just doesn't work for me. So I was really happy I could get it from the library so that afterwards I could go back and do the exercises, and I sort of went back and forth between the two things. I was also super excited that the author of this is Canadian, so he referenced going to the National Art Gallery and being on the Ottawa River and stuff like that. So that was just really cool sort of bonus for me as well. One of the things, though, I think it would have helped a little bit with the book is to often have examples of productivity. It was something, in some ways I get it, because it was you get to choose what makes you productive or what you're working on, or to compare this amount of time versus that amount of time working on the same thing. But I realized that afterwards, or some point during the book, is that it's almost never mentioned. He tests his productivity all the time. He did a year of testing different productivity methods and did it through blogging. And but I felt like it was never referenced what he was being productive about, and that's not completely true, because he did often siphon it off, separate it out into trying different methods, interviewing people, and writing articles. And that made me realize that the bulk of it, this is a light bulb, author, the product he is producing is writing, because here we have the book. It happened. He did it. So, but I think that that is often something that could have been brought back to attention in terms of, for the reader, is, you know, if you're being productive, what are you producing? What is the outcome of your productivity? It's not that it never happens, but it's just often I find nonfiction books like this often have lots and lots and lots of examples from the author or from other people, which give you different ways of sort of interpreting it. Say if you were, I don't know, like if you were a personal shopper, if you were, I'm trying to think, but it's like through the lens of productivity isn't always a job. So I don't know. Anyway, but for me, it made me realize that one of the things that would be helpful in terms of talking about productivity is to keep your eye on what you are producing, or what is the thing that will make you know if you were productive. So that was an insight that I had while I was reading the book, something that I'm still mulling over. So yeah, but it was nice to get some nonfiction into the mix. I do enjoy reading nonfiction, and I didn't read as much last year. When I realized my stats, it was way, way, way down. Normally, I read about 30% nonfiction, but I think last year it was more like 12. So I want to actively be making sure I'm getting some nonfiction into the mix. Next up, not nonfiction, but a play. I finished Equus. I think it's Equus by Peter Shaffer. Or it could be Equus by Peter Shaffer, or Equus by Peter Shaffer. I don't know the pronunciation of anything. Anyway, so this was one of the like 100 plus titles I unwrapped throughout December last year. And I thought I would start things off easy with a really short pick. This is just over 100 pages. I do want to read a lot more of my physical editions this year, as they are now unwrapped and available, and so I thought I would start things off easy with the play. Now, this did not take me that long to read, I think a week at most, but it was such an engaging work. I just, you know, really thought about it both while I was reading it and then like in between reading it, and then since reading it, like I just keep on thinking about it, keep on thinking about the story that it shared, the ideas that it shared. I've read up a little bit about it as well. I don't always do that. I never do that before, almost never do that before. Because it's something I'm curious as to, like, how, like, was it representing something very specific to the time in which it came out, which was 1973, was when it was first produced at the National Theatre. They even have, I love when they have the original cast. I have the original cast listed. And the crew. Because the crew is important. You can't produce a play without a crew. But yeah, this is pretty much mostly a two-hander, although there are more people, but it's mostly a two-hander between a psychiatrist and a new intake patient after there has been an event. And the patient is, I can't remember if they say how old Alan is. He's like 17. All right, a lean boy of 17. And then there's also the description, actually, of the set. Like, the setting is like a page and a half long. And then there's a half a page just describing the horses, which are on stage, and the horses are portrayed by humans, but it's in a very particular manner. But this was just, it was so engaging and interesting, and just really made me think in so many ways, and it really had me get a little concerned is a little too strong of a word, but it made me think about my reading choices, because this was so good. It made me realize that I should probably be reading more works that are this good. Now, I've said before, and I'll say again, that that reading for enjoyment is one of the reasons that I read, but it's not the only reason that I read. And my larger reading goals, regardless of what individual goals I pick year to year. But for the past at least 6 years, I think my reading, now 7, my reading goals have been to increase my reading comprehension. That's not the first one. Expand my reading horizons, increase my reading comprehension, and enjoy what I'm reading. And not each book has to hit all 3 marks, although this book did, and I would say this book did as well. So I had 2 wins this week. Yay! But yeah, so I do like to read for enjoyment, but it's not the only reason I read. And when I read this, I was like, whoa, this was the quality of this was so good that it made me question some of the other reading choices I make. But I don't always say, like, for me, I also don't think quality is the most important thing either. So it's just got me a little hawing on some of the choices I've made and if I would make them differently in the future. And this was really horrible timing because I had just made all my reading goals. So now I'm like rethinking things. I don't think I'm going to change my reading goals, but if it ends up that I end up like not meeting a whole bunch of them, that's fine. And I have like my 3 overarching reading goals, which are the 3 that I mentioned: expanding my reading horizons, increasing my reading comprehension, and enjoy what I'm reading. But then this year I've come up with a lot of more specific reading goals. So that may shift and change over the year. I don't know. Some of them are standard ones that I do every year, but it just made me think a little bit harder on what I choose, and maybe how that there could be some value in being a little more picky on what I choose and what I stick with. So, but I do like to read for enjoyment as well, and I definitely enjoyed this next finish, which was Basely Bones by Wiliam Ritter. This is the 2nd book in the Jackaby series. This is an historical urban fantasy that centers on a young woman named Abigail who comes to the States. She's British. She comes to the States to sort of seek life and adventure and make her own way in the world, and she ends up being working for Jackaby, who is basically sort of like a supernatural or paranormal detective or private investigator. So this is the 2nd book in the series, so I'm not going to say too much about it, other than that I just really, really enjoyed it. I love this series. I definitely feel like I want to go ahead very soon with the 3rd book in the series, and I just really loved it. Like, honestly, this one, 100% enjoyment. Like, just really, really did. So yeah, I don't have too much to say about that. I started it in Grinchathon, so like in mid-December. So it took me a while to finish it. I took a break from it and then I came back. I actually am getting a little bit more intentional with my reading. And this week I actually picked a shorter, like I had all of these titles I was trying to work through a little bit. And then when I did my reading plan on Sunday, I decided to pare that down a little bit and just work on a couple this week. So I'm going to see how that goes. I don't know how it's going to go. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But one of the ones that I'm focusing on that I started last October but haven't read a lot from is, and I apologize that the whole thing is not available, I'll show you why in a second, but it begins with Betrayal by, I think it's Iona, it's Iona, Whishaw. Does it say it on the intro? So I can just get a visual for you. Yeah, there you go. There it is. It begins with Betrayal by Iona Whishaw. This is the 4th book in the Lane Winslow mystery series, and I actually started this on a bit of a lark because I am continuing lightly to work on this whole idea of making one bigger book into smaller volumes. So this is like a 380 page book that I made into different volumes. I'm actually really happy with this, how that cover happened. So I actually, this one I did upside down. So let's look at this one. So I actually even made end pages for it, and then I do a bit of a spacer page of that's just printer paper, and this was like scrapbooking paper or something, and then glue it in, and then it wraps around to the back. So the hardest part is to get this part glued down. It just really doesn't, I guess because you move it, it just doesn't really stick. Anyway, the whole point of doing it this way was to see if there was more ease on my hands in reading something in smaller volumes, and shocker, it is. So yeah, so I don't know if I'm going to try and do this. I'm not going to do this with every book. I own over 400 pages, but I probably am going to do it with ones that are 800 pages and over. Once I firmly decided I'm going to read them. So there is one in the running very soon. So I might even do a video showing how I do it, but I would want the video to be really good and really clear, so I'm not sure if that's too challenging a project to do. Anyway, back to the book. So it begins with Betrayal. This is a historical mystery, which is totally out of my wheelhouse, and it took me a long time to settle into this one because I think the sort of two types of subgenres of mysteries that I hear people talking about a lot are thrillers, so fast-paced, page turners, often a twist ending kind of situation, and then cozy mysteries, which are lighthearted, nothing super horrible happening other than usually a murder. And this is actually a mystery, which I totally kind of forgot was like a thing because I'm not really a mystery reader. And thinking of all this, I should have saved this for March with March Mystery Madness, but oh well, I'm getting close to done, so I want to know the resolve. So this is a historical mystery. It's a Canadian series. This is the 4th book, and this one is partially set in Canada and partially set in, you can probably tell by the flag, the UK. And it's set after World War II, but it does have an event that was part of World War II. It's not super focused on that. So if you are someone like me, like I often don't read World War II books or watch World War II movies because I find them too upsetting in terms of themes with the Holocaust. This is not really focused on that. It features someone who was in the war, and there was, as I said, a particular event, but it's not so much to do with that. Not discounting the horribleness of that. I know it was horrible. I find it too hard to be with those stories again and again and again. I know it's important to remember. It is so important to remember, but I can't, especially in fiction, I can't go there again and again and again. It's too hard. So sorry, didn't mean to go there, but back to this book. So it's part set in the UK, part set in Canada, and Lane Winslow is the protagonist, arguably. I don't know, it feels so much more like an ensemble cast, and she's trying to help a friend who has been, it looks like, he's being charged with a murder that he didn't commit. So this one is it's really good, but it's just like, it's so not what I normally read, and it makes me realize, wow, yeah, I get it with mysteries, why you want to stick with reading one book, because I always read a whole bunch of different things at the same time, but with this, I'm like, no, I want to know what happens next. Like, it's not like a nail biter, but it's also that slow burn Canadian pace of like, it's like, oh yeah. And then like all of a sudden, like you're so into it and you're so invested. And that really happened to me with this one. I read a whole bunch of it yesterday. I'll probably finish it before the end of the weekend. So I'm really enjoying it. Although I would say with this one, I do think it would be much better to go back to the beginning and start with book 1. Because there is a story arc, both a story arc and relationship arcs that I think are from all through the books, so it's not so much of a just jump in and out, which I think is more of a cozy mystery type of a thing. So yeah, I just didn't really realize, I forgot about mystery being a genre in and of itself, because I had really thought cozies and thrillers, and I thought this would be a cozy. No, I don't know, I don't know what doesn't make it a cozy, but it doesn't feel like a cozy to me. I am not an expert. Anyway, but yeah, and I also got this book from my aunt, so I didn't have the first book. I was just like, and I don't even know if I knew that it was the 4th book, so I just jumped into it. So because my aunt is a voracious reader, and she reads a lot of mysteries, so often she shares ones that she has read, and and this was one of those. And it's also really nice to read a Canadian novel that's a mystery, like something that's set in Canada. So anyway, I'm enjoying it, but I can tell that there's so much more with the characters that I haven't that I missed from the earlier books, but I am in it now. I gotta find out. I got about 100 pages left, and we're getting close. Although it has the dual timeline thing, and I gotta say, I don't think I'm a fan of the dual timeline, but this video is getting pretty long, so I'm probably not gonna go into that, because it talks about, like, current day, and then it talks about the events in the past, and I just don't, to be honest, I'm not sure how to articulate it, but I don't think it's, I'm not doesn't mean I'm not enjoying the book. I just, like, as a writing device, I feel it as a device, and that throws me out of the reading experience. So I guess that's what it is. So we'll leave it there. So hopefully I will finish that for next week. And definitely we'll finish probably for next week is A Match Made for Thanksgiving by Jackie Lau. This is the first in the Holiday with the Wongs book series. And actually I think they're all novellas. They're all around 120 pages-ish or so. This is actually another Canadian novel. This is often set in Toronto even. Yeah! And the author is based in Toronto. So that's super exciting to see. This came on my radar because of Izzy from Happy for Now posted about the series. The third book in the series is the February pick for Romance Sparks Joy book club. And so I looked it up and I saw that I was familiar with the author because she also writes what is it called? The Baldwin Village books? Something like that, which is set on Baldwin is a street here in Toronto, and which has a lot of great restaurants. And so I heard about her through that Ultimate Pie Day Party, like PI, like math. Anyway. Anyway, I'm really enjoying this. It's a racy romance novella set on Thanksgiving, and they're all holiday themed. So this one's Thanksgiving, and then there's also one that is Christmas, I think, and then there's one that is Valentine's, and then the current read, I think, is Chinese New Year, which was their pick for Romance Sparks Joy. And that makes sense because it is that time of year. So yeah, I am looking forward to finishing this off. I'm really close. I have like 30 pages left. And yeah, and it follows a group of siblings in one family throughout different holidays of the year. And it's been a lot of fun, and I'm very much enjoying it. So I think I'm going to leave it there. I had more to talk about, but I know what's coming up next week. The next thing that I want to read is, and also Holiday with the Wongs, which is a bind-up of all the novellas, is on sale, at least on Amazon.ca, for like $6.99 Canadian, obviously. So I'm definitely going to pick that up because I want to finish off the series. So there's that. But then I also really, I noticed that Hoopla has bonus borrows again, which are things that you can borrow that don't take up a credit. And one of the options is AstroBoy, the original AstroBoy. I think it's volume 1 and 2. It's about 400, maybe 500 pages. And I have never read AstroBoy. And so I am definitely going to read this, and I'm going to start it soon because it is a longer work or a longer bind up. And so I'm really, really excited about that. And yeah, so if you have Hoopla, check out and see if they have bonus borrows this month. I know they do here for the Toronto Public Library, and they have comics and manga, as well as some movies too. There were some surprising movies. There were a lot of movies I hadn't heard of, and then they have some sort of like educational stuff and some TV and all that stuff. So anyway, so yeah, check out bonus borrows at Hoopla. I don't know, Hoopla does seem different regionally, so I don't know if that's something that's available in all places, like here in Canada, or at least associated with the Toronto Library. We don't have any audiobooks or books at all, other than comics and graphic novels and manga, which definitely are still, well, are they books? Are they whatever? They're titles. That's why I always use the word titles. I don't know if people have picked up on that. I always tend to use the words titles because this is a title. I didn't show that, so I'm not going to show. This is a title. This is nonfiction is a title. Is nonfiction a book? Yes. No. This is a novella. Bind up. It's still a title. So title is always correct. Okay, so that's up. Oh, and if you did make it this long into the video, feel free to leave a number between 1 and 30 down below. I can't promise when something will happen with that, but I do want to film a couple of videos so that if I end up not having a Friday Reads, I have something. So I thought that might be a fun way to do it. So yeah, so just leave between 1 and 30, and yeah, and that might turn into a video in the future, or it may not. No promises there, but I realized I could do some backup videos with that. So we're gonna leave it there. That was a long Friday Reads. I guess because I took a week off, I had more to say. Amazing how that happens. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be back soon with another video.